Hello, and welcome to the O&M Stockroom. We're your hosts, Brian McGarry.
And Ken O'Malley.
Tonight is episode 28 of Complimentary Cinema. If you're new to the channel, Complimentary Cinema is a program where we review and discuss films you can watch for free that are available on YouTube. Please be warned, we discuss these films in detail, so consider this a full spoiler alert. So this was my week to pick, and it was a toss-up between Robocop 3 and Mothman. And we ended up flipping a coin, and we picked Mothman. And I think we got about 8 minutes into it and decided that Robocop 3 would be a more worthy use of our time.
Yes, it turned out Mothman was a very low budget, terrible production.
Absolutely dreadful. So we ended up going with Robocop 3 from 1993, directed by Frank Decker, and very loosely based on something that Frank Miller scribbled on a cocktail napkin at one point.
And then written by Fred Decker.
Frank Decker and some other dude. So,
Fred Decker.
Fred Decker.
Frank Miller, Fred Decker.
Fred Decker with 2 Ks.
Decker.
For a double decking of that double K action. All right, so with any film that we review on this channel, it's got to meet 3 criteria. Ken, what are our 3 criteria that we look for?
Well, those would be whether it's well written, well acted, and well produced.
I think that's a good basic criteria for any film to meet. So the question is RoboCop 3 going to pass muster? We'll find out. So our cast of characters for this lovely, lovely film, replacing the wonderful and fantastic Peter Weller as RoboCop, we have Robert Burke taking over the role of Alex Murphy / RoboCop. We have Rami Ryan as Nico Halloran. We have Bruce Locke as Atomo. Nancy Allen reprising her role as Ann Lewis from the first 2 films. And then we also have Rip Torn as the CEO of OCP, Omni Consumer Products, the big corporation that features in this universe. We have Mako as Kanemitsu. He's kind of the Rip Torn equivalent, but in Japan, his Japanese business partner. And then we have Bradley Whitford as Jeffrey Fleck. CCH Pounder's in it. We have Daniel Von Bargen and Stephen Root. And we also have Jill Hennessy as Dr. Hot Mama Pants Lazarus. And that's roughly your cast of characters for this film. Oh, yeah, and then there's like that other like big bad guy. What was his name? McDaggett. John Castle as Paul McDaggett.
Yeah. That's kind of the Nazi stormtrooper guy.
He's the real villain of the film. So give us a quick little... give us a synopsis, Ken.
So this is a movie about the corporation is clearing out the slums, and they're going to just literally chase the people out of their homes, knock down all the buildings, and build Delta City, which has been like, since the first movie, you know, the ultimate dream is to just completely tear everything down and start from scratch.
And build this amazing, big, glistening, ideal model city. And to do so, they have to round people up using rehabilitation officers, also known as rehabs, which are basically, they look like they're Spaceballs from the film of the same name. Just, you know, big round helmets, big round plastic helmets, bad uniforms.
So there's a number of factions in this movie. There's also a number of characters, and the list is pretty long here. So we have our rehabs, we have our resistance fighters,
which are basically just neighborhood people who are tired of being pushed around.
Yep. You've got your police officers,
The Detroit Police Department.
You've got your OCP corporation people.
The bad businessmen.
And then you've got Robocop.
He really is his own category.
So you have a whole, like, each one of these is a group that's doing things. Oh, and then also the Japanese corporate people.
The Japanese.
Which is technically a separate thing.
Very separate, but they're kind of the puppet masters of all of this. So OCP owns the Detroit police. They own the rehabs. And it seems that the Japanese own OCP.
Right.
So they're all kind of pulling each other's strings there.
Yeah, they made like a deal with rehabs to, like, get a cut, I guess, of the profits or something.
I think my eyes were glazing over when that particular piece of information was relayed to us earlier in the film.
But if any of the parts of the plot seem convoluted, it's because with all of these groups, everything is very convoluted.
So, why don't we just cut to the chase on the script here? Robocop comes, doesn't do very much, and then eventually the good guys win.
Yes.
So let's now I have heard, I have never, no, generally speaking, we have never seen the films that we talk about or review on this channel.
Right.
That's part of the fun of this. We get to see something new. We get to talk about it with fresh eyes. Now, I knew a little bit about this film. I knew that at some point, Lewis, his partner from the first two films, I knew that at some point she got greased and that was the end of that. I knew that at some point he was going to be flying around with a rocket pack. I also knew that there was a kid, a small child, say about 10 years of age, who plays a sizable role in the film. Those were the things I knew. And I also heard that this movie was absolutely god-awful.
See, I went into this one completely blind. I've only ever seen the first movie. I love the first movie. I've owned it and watched it many times. And never felt like, the sequels from that time just didn't necessarily measure up. And I just, for whatever reason, never watched the other two.
The first film is an absolute brilliant piece of work. And it is a classic. It has aged incredibly well. And the script on that is wonderful. The acting is wonderful. It's perfectly cast.
Music.
The music is great. One of my favorite bands did the music for the nightclub scene in that film. Just saying. They had some good people involved. And Paul Verhoeven directed that one. He did Starship Troopers, Total Recall. That's a guy who can make movies. He also did Basic Instinct, if I'm correct. Something a little bit out of his usual. Just a good filmmaker, right? Robocop 2, I don't remember who directed that one, but it has a lot of the same cast from the first film. It has a lot of the same elements from the first film. And it's still a good film. It's still enjoyable. I've only seen that one once, but I liked it quite a bit. And then number 3, which came out in 1993. This film was filmed in 91. And they had to sit on it for a couple of years. Now, when they filmed this in 91, the Robocop cartoon was a big thing. Kenner had been making tons of action figures and all kinds of toys. There's a glow-in-the-dark Robocop. I have one of the original figures that has a little cap popping action that's built into the back. Back when everything just, you could shoot caps. That was great. Point is, they really wanted to appeal to the kids with this film. So they have toned down the violence. They have toned down some of the social commentary. Not necessarily by today's standards, but for back then, absolutely. Not as much blood. It's they took something that was brilliant as rated R and made it PG, almost PG-13.
I think the hard part with that too is they also dumbed it down. Like, a lot of the elements are the same from the first movie as far as, like, okay, big corporation bad, police force dysfunctional, a lot of those kind of general beats are the same except dumber.
they don't hit. They're not timed as well. They don't hit as well. And the biggest mistake that they made was making this without Peter Weller.
Right.
So I'm a fan of the Hellraiser movies, specifically the first couple films. And in that film, you have Doug Bradley, who plays what was originally known as the lead Cenobite and then eventually was dubbed Pinhead. And the guy's covered head to toe in prosthetics and costumes and makeups. And in the first film, he only has a few lines anyway. Now, this is kind of a tangent, but when he first made that film, he had the option to either be a guy who was moving a bed and have a couple lines, or he could, play this random character covered in makeup. And he almost went with the mover so that, it's my first film, people should see my face. And he realizes, he realized that he ended up making the right decision going with the big monster guy. And let me tell you, if they'd put anybody else in that suit, it wouldn't have been the same performance. And you have that exact same problem with Robocop. Now, Robert Burke is a perfectly fine actor. He's in Thinner, one of my favorite horror films. He's done some other great stuff. He's a perfectly fine, competent actor. He absolutely sucked in this film. He didn't have the gravitas. He didn't have the voice. He did not have the presence. Never mind that they don't do anything with this character in this film anyway. This is the most fucking useless Robocop possibly could have been. And then they don't even have the guy with the brass balls to fill the suit.
They turn him into a bumbling idiot for most of this movie. Like, just he's not even competent. He can't move fast enough. Part of the first movie was he's kind of clunky, but he's very competent, when it comes time to get the job done.
I felt
and clever in a way where there was no cleverness in this, not even calculating really. It's just he was confused the whole time.
It looked like he spent a lot of time just kind of reminiscing and thinking about things and not doing what needed to be done. And he kept showing up a day late and $1 short.
Which part of the original character is he's in his head a lot.
Yeah.
But the part in his head is telling a story. Whereas in this movie, all it does is tell the connection between he sees the little girl in the movie as a parallel to his family.
Yes.
And the doctor lady is a parallel to his family.
Yes.
And that is it's not even character development though. It's other people can be like my family. But that's not even the story.
No, it's just a random thing that they just kind of sprinkle in there.
These people are good people.
My exasperated sigh is about all I can give you on that. You're absolutely correct. It's because here's the thing: the kid is likable enough.
The kid's all right.
The kid's fine.
It's a kid.
It's a kid who's good with computers. She's kind of like the Wesley Crusher. She can just plug into things and just immediately make them work and do crazy stuff.
Or the kid in Jurassic Park,
Unix.
I know Unix.
Or is it Linux? Unix?
No, it's Unix.
I guess Linux didn't exist then. Unix. I know this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this kid does the exact same thing, just plugging into an Ed 209 and getting it to shoot cop cars and stuff. And it's cute, whatever. This is kind of supposed to be set in the future anyway, so from 1993 standards, that would have been believable-ish. So, and early on, you sympathize with that character. You sympathize with the Dr. Lazarus character.
Absolutely.
Because they're likable and everything on their own.
The little girl's parents get separated from her and literally taken to internment camps where we later find that they've died.
Yes.
They were killed while they were trying to flee.
Meanwhile, this is a very talented and not particularly annoying child. What more can you ask for? So it's not like you need RoboCop's insight to like these characters or to want them to be protected and to be helped.
And I think that's a big part of the problem is we're on the kid side from the beginning of the movie.
Absolutely.
That's why I think the beginning of the movie is actually part of the stronger part.
Yes.
When you first are, meeting the insurgents, when you're building up that beginning part, you feel like you're building towards something and you're just not sure what it is yet. And you never really get there. Like, there's never any payoff for the little girl other than she's just technologically smart and helps them out of some jams. But in the end, she's still...
Her parents are still dead, and her home has still been destroyed.
It's like, yeah, she's friends with the doctor lady, but that's not really her mom. Like is now the doctor lady like, oh, I guess I'm taking care of you now. Like, let's get you back in the system.
Yeah, and RoboCop's going to be her surrogate dad.
Exactly. So
can you imagine RoboCop explaining the birds and the bees to a child?
No.
Stay out of trouble.
I can see you through walls.
Oh man.
So anyway, I think that's like from the beginning. All hope was not lost until like a little bit of time into the movie. I think when the Alan, his partner, what's her name? Anne
Lewis, yeah.
When she dies, that's really, I think, when this movie bottoms out, or it falls off the cliff.
That's the big fork in the road for the film, because up to that point, you kind of are really caring about what's going on and you're invested, and then they kill Anne Lewis on the steps of a church.
It wasn't good before that. Like, it wasn't good.
You were waiting for it to get good,
but I just was like, okay, well, I'm giving it a chance. But after that point, like, the chances were used up. It never got better after that point. Certainly.
No.
They killed off other strong characters as far as whatever the other lady's name that I don't know.
CCH Pounder.
Yeah, her whatever character name.
Bertha.
Yes. When they killed her off, that's like another all right, well, she was the important one. All the other people were just kind of background goons working for her or with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were fine, but like she was the only one doing any work out of them.
She was the leader of them, and she was getting them to do things. And it was that whole scene though too. So CCH Pounder's leading these rebels in an underground area, and the rehab soldiers come in and just start killing everybody, and they kill her. And it was just straight out of Total Recall, where the Martian military just comes in and kills Kuato and wipes them all out. Another Paul Verhoeven film. I feel like they just it just had too many of the same things going on.
Her death scene too, where she just flops over.
It was the best death scene I've seen in a while, and best isn't most hilarious.
It's like if you were reading the script and just found out that you were gonna die and you were kind of pissed off about it. You're like, well, I'm just gonna flop over. Like, it was comical.
It's worth skipping it's worth looking up this film and just skipping straight to that section just to watch that. It's great.
And there are several times that we were laughing out loud at times where you should not have narratively, because it just missed the mark.
So you have an action film that has its roots in fairly gritty, very cynical R-rated film. And then you have the cartoon, and then you make the film to appeal, quote unquote, to the kids. And the first couple films have a little bit of that black comedy edge to it. And this film incorporates more humor, but they don't ever know when and where to use it. It seems almost random when something's supposed to be funny and when something's supposed to be serious.
The majority of it is played straight. It's not even funny. Like, like a lot of the scenes are just people talking where it's not really funny.
But you're laughing anyway because it's so goddamn stupid.
Yeah.
And having Rip Torn in the film as the CEO of OCP, he is way at the top through most of his performance. It's very... His character in Men in Black was more straightforward and more serious than this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
I mean, he played his role pretty serious, or it was pretty silly in this film.
It was very uneven too.
Yes, it was.
It's hard to take him serious as a businessman or as a just kind of guy who is a joke. You couldn't take him either way.
Yeah, you couldn't, and you never did, and you never knew how to feel about him.
Yeah.
He just, yeah. And then you had, what was his name? Fleck?
Yeah.
He was the, oh man, what was that guy's name? Miguel Ferrer. He was the young business guy in the first RoboCop who pisses off his older colleague, and then he gets killed for it.
Mm.
So Fleck, he's the new version of that guy. He's supposed to have the same kind of schmarmy, but still on top of things.
Yeah.
But he never sells it either.
He's not around for long enough either.
The problem with all of the corporate guys, other than the one guy from the first film who just always manages to survive and stick it out.
Mm-hmm.
All of the rest of them, all of the white guy corporate guys in this film, all of them are schmucks. None of them are believable. None of them sell it to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they didn't have enough rehearsal time or something. Or really bad direction.
Like if you really wanted to switch the script up, the thing for the third movie would have been to make the OCP guys the good guys.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But
that would have been the real way if like the way they flipped the script with other stuff.
Well, it's like in the first film, a couple of the OCP guys are kind of the good guys. In the second film, they're really the bad guys.
Well, the first film, it's more just like some of them have a conscience and they speak up about it. The corporation's still never the good guys.
Oh, never. The other thing that bugs me about this film, so you have Sergeant Reed. Mm-hmm. So he's in all three films. He's the leader of the Detroit Police. He's incredibly uneven in this film.
Yeah.
He's either like, the plucky, hard-ass cop who's going to do what's right no matter what, or he's just not.
Yeah.
And you never know in this film which one he's going to be.
In the first movie, he's more of like doesn't take any crap.
None.
You know what I'm saying?
He doesn't take so much as a corn kernel of crap from anybody.
He takes all of the crap in this movie, and he's like going around doing other people's menial jobs and stuff, and like no one listens to him, and like except for the part where he stands up and people follow him out, like that's literally the only thing he does in this movie that's like in charge.
And that's the only time that you see that character from that first film either.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's just the same guy in the same costume.
It's a poor shadow of the first movie.
It's not the bad motherfucker Sergeant Reed that we got in the first film.
Yeah.
By far.
Yeah.
And it's a shame.
So I think on a basic level, we can agree that this movie just doesn't exactly understand what it means to be a RoboCop movie. In addition to just missing the mark by trying to tone it down and make it a family movie, it also just completely misses the mark for the right kind of humor, the right kind of violence. Because that's another thing. A lot of the violence is pointless, ultimately. It's, just to shoot up a car, like just to show something exploding. Like it doesn't really advance the story in a meaningful way.
The first explosion, I looked at the timestamp. It was like at 5:45.
Mm-hmm.
So, very early in the film, you have the first explosion. And it's a fairly bloodless film, too.
Yeah.
For a lot of people supposedly getting greased, you don't really see much blood. You don't see much gore. Part of that dumbing down and toning down. And we talked about this just after we watched the film, about how whenever companies try to dumb things down for kids or make things kids friendly, I don't know how maybe kids are today, but I know what I was like when I was a kid, and I know what kids a little bit younger than me were like, and kids older than me. We wanted that cool, taboo, dangerous thing that we couldn't get our hands on. You wanted to watch the rated R movie because they swore a lot, and because there were boobs, and because there was swearing, and just, there was real adult stuff going on. That was the appeal of it. Now, I'm not saying kids should watch stuff like that, but that's part of the appeal of kids. Like every little 8-year-old, swears and is always getting in trouble, at least when I was growing up. I don't know what kids are watching now with Disney. I mean, maybe it's a more sanitized world, but especially in the early 90s when things were extreme and radical and tubular and a little more adult. I mean, because they made a cartoon based on a rated R film, and they made toys for that. Terminator 2 came out in 91. Okay? I saw that in the theater. I was 8 or 9 years old. I had the BioFlesh Regenerator playset. I had some of the action figures. I had a whole bunch of trading cards. That was a rated R film. That was super violent and super action-packed. And they made kids' toys for it. They didn't need a cartoon.
Yeah.
They just straight up sold kid toys for rated R films back in the day.
Yeah.
They don't even make rated R films anymore.
Not like this.
They exist on paper.
Yeah.
You barely ever get them. And you certainly don't get them like Robocop or, Terminator 2 or Aliens anymore. The good times. So just my advice. You want to appeal to kids? There are certain things you can tone down without having to throw another kid into it.
Yeah.
And without having to really dumb things down. You don't have to do that.
So let's talk about the next big misstep that stands out really far in this film is the Asian faction itself. So this Japanese corporation has their own robot man that they send to activate and send to try, clean up the problem.
Atomo.
And he's literally trying to find Robocop for the entire movie. They keep showing scenes of him like just tracking him down, and like we spend a lot of time with these little clips watching him do stuff. And then when he fights Robocop, and the first time he fights him, it is a farce. Like, he could have killed Robocop 10 times during this fight. But instead, he cuts off his fingers, which are robotic and pointless, his arm, which is robotic and pointless, and then he gets killed.
You forgot all the dancing and twirling around that this samurai robot did. And apparently his samurai sword is so sharp that it can cut through whatever metal that Robocop is made out of.
They established that earlier, and then it doesn't pay off at all.
No. And the other incredibly irritating thing, this guy's just dancing around Robocop and kicking him over. And Robocop, and this is a good symbolism for the film itself, he's basically just on his back like an upturned turtle.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, I can't move. I can't get up. And then when he gets up slightly, he gets kicked down again. And he's the turtle on its back. I've seen more enthusiasm and desire to fight from a cockroach on its back than I have from Robocop in this film.
Did they show Robocop doing any feats of strength in this movie? Like, does he ever actually use the robo suit just to be a strong man?
No.
That doesn't even happen.
No. He carries Lewis's body in the church when she dies.
Right.
And he's really good at getting shot and kicked over and pushed, and at one point carried by a few regular people.
I'm just saying a big part of the original appeal of Robocop was that he was really strong.
The appeal of Robocop is that he's a bad motherfucker in this amazing suit, and he's the ultimate transhuman cyborg. That's the appeal of Robocop. What you get is you basically get a head on a stick that's looking around sad, talking about family.
Yeah.
Who can't not get his ass kicked every single time you see him.
There's just so many things that are wrong in this movie.
If we had written them down and gone by them one by one, it would be as long as the film itself.
It's so unfocused, and there's no synergy between any of it either. Like,
it's a pastiche of all of the great things that we liked from the first couple films. You get a taste
without learning anything from the other films.
No, there's no so yeah, exactly. So nothing new really transpires. It's still OCP. It's still Delta City is the dream. It's still RoboCop missing his family that's long left him. There's no growth. There's no real arc for anybody in this.
I mean, RoboCop does upgrade to the hot doctor. So, I mean, that's something.
That is true.
But
Ann Lewis is pretty in the first film. But you could really tell she was kind of letting her go by this film. And Mom Pants Doctor was definitely pretty hot. That said, there was no real character arc for many of these characters.
Yeah.
And certainly not in this universe. Nothing new is revealed. So we see, we see the I'll buy that for $1 guy.
Yeah.
We get a little taste of, some of the cynical, funny TV stuff.
Yeah, they had one commercial and 2 very short news segments.
Yeah. Which we need a little bit more of, to be honest, in that film.
I mean, there's so many times they could have been talking about the movements of the people in the city or like whatever it was. And I think that's just another opportunity. They could have had, this is the other thing, they could have had commercials for the Japanese corporation.
Could have, would have, should have. No, here's the thing. Now, because RoboCop 2 didn't do great, they cut the budget for this film.
Right.
What a perfect way to spice up the film and add a little more interest than to add more segments like that.
Right.
They would have cost almost nothing to make.
Yeah.
How much does a crappy TV commercial cost?
Exactly.
Not that much. Okay, you already have the news set. You already recorded a couple. Just knock out a couple more bits.
Yeah.
How hard would that have been? It would have broken up the film a little bit. You could have also given exposition in a more interesting way than just dragging it out in these people talking scenes.
See, I think the way to fix the story is that the I want to say Nakamoto, but I know that's not right.
Nakamichi Plaza.
Kanamishu. Whatever the Japanese corporation is. I hate saying that over and over.
Hold on, let me see if I have it listed on here.
I'm sure it's there.
Kanamitsu.
Kanamitsu.
Yes.
The real story, the better story would have been the OCP has lost the rights to Delta City.
Mm-hmm.
And so this other corporation is coming in on their turf. And so OCP has a reason to work with RoboCop and the police force to stop it from happening. And that would have been a much more interesting and focused story, because then there's a reason why there's this Asian robot guy.
You could have had Rehab working strictly for the Japanese.
Exactly.
And then you would have had real conflict there. See, but that would have been good writing though, Ken.
I'm saying that's so basic. Like the fact that they couldn't see that it's just a terrible idea to have like the police officers, even the heroic police officers, right? They all walk off the job and they go to defend the rebels and their homes and all this stuff.
Cadillac Heights neighborhood, yes.
And then have the most pathetic standoff with the people fighting in, and they have to have RoboCop come and save them. Like them doing that and standing up with them ultimately did nothing.
It didn't change anything. It just prolonged.
They just got hid behind some cars and got shot at until RoboCop came and saved everyone.
And just blew people up.
And that was like them walking out of the job was actually one of the stronger beats.
That was a great scene. I liked it. I loved it. That's when we saw the Sergeant Reed that we knew from the earlier films.
Right.
It was like, oh, there you are, you bastard. Where have you been? And then it was like, finally.
And then it ultimately meant nothing.
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
So here's, but just to go back for a moment. So you have the Japanese corporation, you have Rehab, and I'm going back to, we don't ever really see anything new. So we could have seen a lot more with that Japanese company.
Yeah.
Now they had their synthetic person, right? In Otomo, the equivalent of RoboCop in its way. But what about Ed 209?
Yeah.
They could have had their own giant mech.
That would have been pretty good.
That would have been good to see. There's more stuff like that they could have done for a little bit of world building. And
They could have made it more about corporate espionage too. Like they were getting the robotic stuff from them.
that would be great. That would be a good story, wouldn't it? But let's talk about Ed 209 again for a moment. So
Yeah.
the first time we see Ed 209, he's not animated any better
Now,
in the first scene than he was in the first film.
how tall would you say Ed 209 in RoboCop is? The original RoboCop.
Now, no, so in the original RoboCop, we see him outside of OCP,
Right.
and we see him in the boardroom, and we see him in a stairwell. I know that we see him in those spots for sure, and I would say 12 plus feet tall.
Yes,
it's
easily.
a big machine.
And he stretches, so he could be anywhere from like 12 to maybe 15 feet when he's all stretched up there.
Sure. I mean, it's not a small.
Everyone's looking up at it.
You look up at Ed 209, and when we first see him, he has that imposing. Okay, see it. The machine has that imposing stature, and they look up at it like, oh God.
But it's because they do it in view of him, view of the people reacting.
Yes.
He's not in the same shot with them.
No. And then when they leave,
And then the only other scene with someone next to it is the little girl. So it doesn't look out of scale to your brain right then because you only see the little girl and its legs.
just a close up of the legs, right? So when we first see Ed 209, this giant mech, just full of guns.
Yeah.
You see exactly what you get the impression of everything you just saw in the first film, and you're like, yeah, Ed 209's awesome. Or I mean, Ed 209.
Something cool's gonna
You know
happen.
something cool's gonna happen and everything, right? So long story short, when that scene concludes, and our good guy rebel people are driving away in a van, you see Ed 209 in the background, and it looks like it's not maybe more than 5-6 feet tall.
The van that they're in is taller than it.
Yes. It is an absolute Spinal Tap Stonehenge moment.
The prop is like half scale.
It's not, I'd say third scale.
Yeah.
I mean, it should have been substantially bigger.
Yeah.
And it was comically undersized in that wide angle view. My God, that was the first time I laughed when I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah. The first of many.
That was the first of many unintentional laughter.
But see, at that point, we weren't into any of the setup was okay,
Yeah, the setup's fine.
and you didn't know what to expect where we were going. So it's like, okay, well, we could see the bad guys. We know who they are. We know who the good guys are. We'll see where this goes. But that part, it didn't go anywhere. It was just an excuse for them to gather some guns and have Ed 209 shoot up a bunch of cop cars.
So what they probably did was they took the animation from the first film, which was done against a blue screen or whatever, and then just superimposed it on that scene, just so that we could have something familiar that we knew, to establish that you're watching a RoboCop movie, and then they just threw it into this scene, and then in the wide scene they're like, oh, let's grab one of the toys and just throw it there. I don't know. It's just
So I want to talk about another thing I thought of, which is the lack of RoboCop himself callbacks to what he's known for, as classic moves in the first movie.
sure.
There are a number of wasted opportunities that are partly because of the rating tone down, but also just part of they just missed opportunities. So the first one is when he first shows up, he's in a car. We haven't seen him yet at all. And he drives off the top of a building for no reason because he doesn't land on anything. He doesn't knock anything over. The car just lands on the ground and he gets out.
And he doesn't just get out. He attaches a gun to where his arm should be, and then he shoots off the roof
Oh no.
of his car,
I completely
and then
forgot that
pops
until you
up
said it.
out of the roof that he shot out. That's the first time that we actually see him in full light.
And none of that was for tactical advantage.
None.
It was literally his own car that
His
he
car.
just ruined the roof of and ruined the whole car by dropping it off a building
Yes.
for no purpose.
None.
Is RoboCop known for making poor tactical decisions?
Not that I recall. If anything, he used his superior mechanized intellect to make wise decisions when it came to tactics and Criminal Pursuit.
So that's Exhibit 1. Exhibit 2 that comes to mind immediately is there's 2 of the creeper rehab guys that are like creeping on a lady with some rapey vibes, and he does not take the opportunity to shoot both of them in the dick.
So in the first film, just want to remind everyone, Kenner made action figures for Robocop. In the first film, Robocop famously shoots a rapist or potential rapist in the dick. I mean, there's a big blood squib and everything, and it's a fantastic scene. Now, in this film, anybody who's seen the first film or the second film, anybody who knows Robocop, they see this coming and they're like, oh God, he's going to shoot 2 guys in the dick.
Like, have you ever seen a sequel movie where they didn't do it bigger every opportunity?
Yeah.
Like on what the movie's known for.
And so Ken, what does he do in this scene?
He shot him and just knocked him through a window.
Yeah. Just shot him in the chest. They're wearing armor, by the way. He could have shot 2 rehab guys in the dicks, and I would have cheered.
I'm just saying.
I would have knocked the fucking table over and cheered. That alone would have redeemed this film just a bit.
Because it's just like you want to see the guy do the thing.
You want to see the guy do the thing.
It's like he's known for saying, dead or alive, you're coming with me, or, whatever. There's like little things you come to expect.
So,
he's got the gun in the holster on his leg.
Shooting rapist in the dick it's almost the equivalent to me of Arnold saying, I'll be back in a Terminator film.
Yeah. But he's kind of got that edge to him. Yeah, he's like Robot Man. Yeah. So part of it's just he's robotic. But part of it is like he's just really efficient and kind of clever in the original Robocop.
And ruthless in his way.
Yeah.
Because he has that machine coldness to him blending with what's left of his humanity.
And like the only parts in this movie that are kept are the part that he's weak when his robot side gets damaged. Like that's it. He's like his energy level's low. Like
efficiency level is at 23%.
He's quote struggling with the prime directives again, because his one of his directives is he can't fight a OCP officer.
I don't remember exactly what they did in the second film, but I know in the second film that's a thing,
right?
Where he has issues with his directives. They keep giving him the same problems. Give him new problems to face.
This one wasn't any different, other than the fact that there was no secret directive. It was just, he used his directives to justify defending just the public instead of doing what the police wanted him to do.
Yeah.
It's like, was that really an evolution? Was that really like another step forward?
Another thing that they screwed up on. So in the first film, they make a big deal about how he twirls his gigantic gun.
Oh yeah.
I can't recall a single moment in the film where he spun his gun around.
And he never puts it back either.
He never puts it back. Yeah.
He literally took it out to fight the sword guy, and the dude just cut it off, and like that's it. He never uses that gun again. Like what a waste!
It could have been a pipe that he picked up, and that would have been as interesting.
Like one of the coolest, most recognizable handguns in a film.
Just thrown away.
Completely wasted.
This movie sucks. I mean, what can I say about it?
So I think there is a good RoboCop 3. Like the idea for a good RoboCop 3 exists.
You could pick it out, yeah. I mean, you could. I don't know that you could cobble it together with what's there now.
No.
But if you took half the elements, rearranged a few things, added a couple of things we talked about, I think you'd have a good film.
There's enough low-hanging fruit for an evolution movie for going another step bigger and beyond, like bigger and better.
Yeah.
That you would do with a sequel, and they don't pluck any of that.
And while the budget for this film was reduced, the costumes still look good. Okay? The sets for the most part are perfectly fine. It was filmed well. It's not like they really didn't maintain that level of integrity with the film. If you just had a better story and had things make a little more sense and not dumb it down, and for God's sake, wait for Peter Weller to be free to star in the film. It's not even... So I was always under the impression that Peter Weller didn't want to do RoboCop 3. And I found out that, no, he was just doing another film at the time and he wasn't available. So they made Robocop without him.
And he literally went to the director to say, oh, no, I want to be Robocop.
I want to be
This is
Robocop.
important to me.
Yeah.
And they just didn't wait for him.
How do you not wait for Robocop? It just underscores, like,
And
that's just a corner they shouldn't have cut.
like, wouldn't the studio want that too?
I would think.
Like, they brought everybody else back that was still alive, presumably.
Yeah, they wanted money. They wanted to make a check. They wanted to be attached to something that was, they were known for, that
saying,
they were proud of.
You could have even cut off half of the rest of the cast and made a better movie still and just brought him back.
Yes.
So
They should have just waited. Or if they were going to use a different guy for Robocop, make him a different character.
yeah.
Okay? It's not like OCP doesn't have the technology to make more than one suit.
Yeah.
Okay? What if there's another cop who gets killed in some other circumstance?
And I joked about making the little girl Robocop. I think that could have been fun. Child Robocop.
It's giving me nightmares thinking about it now. It was funny at the time, Ken, but now I'm traumatized.
It's like Robo Kindergarten Cop. Is there nothing left to talk about?
Final summary and recommendation.
I mean, I guess if you wanted, we could talk about some of the other things, but
Shoot. What do you got?
I mean, as far as just like the things we would normally say, is it worth it?
Well, I mean, it's like sound editing and stuff like that.
Mm.
Not really necessarily vital. We usually gloss over those anyway.
So we have three primary criteria that we need to determine. I'm sure you figured this out by now, but was this film well written?
No.
Was this film well acted?
Only in part.
It's a mixed bag.
It's a mixed bag.
Was it well produced?
So here's the thing. Here's the thing with this criteria in this particular case. Screenplay was shit.
Yeah,
I think we can agree on that.
absolutely.
Was it well acted? I would say half the cast did really well. And the other cast were really hammy and over the top.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a mixed bag. So we're already at 30% there. Now, was it well produced? Costumes were good. Some of the effects were good. The explosions are real. This is, they used very minimal computer animation in anything. For the time and for the budget, it is well produced.
Yeah, I would agree.
So, I mean, at best,
It's competently filmed.
At best, it's at the 50% mark, is what I would say.
Yeah.
Because you have the makings of a good film here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like somebody who's trying to make meatloaf for the first time. They have all the ingredients, but things aren't mixed the way that they should be. You didn't have the temperature of the oven quite right. Maybe you left things in there just a little too long, or did you take them out too early?
Yeah.
I mean, do we have like a soggy, undercooked meatloaf here? Yes.
Yeah.
Did we get all the trimmings that we expected? No, we didn't.
Mm-mm. There's no crust.
There's no crust. There's no. You didn't get enough ketchup to go with it. There's not enough vegetables. You don't have a main entree here. You just have some side dishes that are masquerading as an entree, Ken.
And ultimately, very disappointing.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and I told you this immediately afterward, and I actually still hold to this. It's not as bad as I was expecting. I was actually expecting a film that was even more kid-friendly. I was expecting a film that focused on the kid companion even more.
Mm.
That's really what my expectation was going into this. There was some swearing. The kid did not dominate the film like the kids do when they're in a film like this. Like Last Action Hero. And, I love it. It's a perfect film. But Terminator 2, John Connor. That kid, he's in the film the whole way through.
But see, that's a perfect example, though, of that would have made this movie better if it had been more focused on the kid. I think it would have been better.
It could have worked.
I'm just saying.
It could have worked.
Even though I thought the kid was a little more annoying than you did, it would have given it more of a
The film
focus.
The film doesn't carry any weight.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah.
Yeah, I can always say that I saw RoboCop 3.
I mean, Robocop won. So at the end of the day, he was the winner. And he got a new family along the way.
Didn't he, though?
And that's the true treasure. So, ultimate recommendation for me is absolutely not. Please do not watch this film. That is my recommendation. There's nothing. You watch the first one. And don't acknowledge, just like I was just a mere few hours ago, don't acknowledge this ever existed.
Watch the first film. You can get away with the second one, but it's not going to be the same caliber as the first one. But this one, definitely skip. And that's a wrap for tonight's episode here at the O&M Stockroom. We're your hosts, Brian McGarry
and Ken O'Malley.
If you enjoyed this segment of Complimentary Cinema, more episodes can be found at omstockroom.com, along with links to our Patreon page and various streaming outlets. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next Wednesday with an all-new episode.